Jack Johnson Pinnell is the head of school and founder of Trinity Arch Preparatory School for Boys in Phoenix, Arizona, a microschool that launched this fall to serve boys ages 7 to 14. Jack is a nationally recognized leader, thinker, and writer about boys' education and developing boys intellectually, physically, and spiritually into extraordinary young men of character. As the founder of an all-boys public charter school in Baltimore, Maryland, called Baltimore Collegiate, Jack gained national recognition for results where boys at his charter school consistently outscored Baltimore City students on state proficiency exams. Jack has a BA from Amherst College and a JD degree from Loyola Law School, Los Angeles. Jack Johnson Pinnell, welcome to the Liberated podcast.
I love the name Liberated. And thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for having me on today.
Thanks for being here, Jack. I'd love to hear how you went from law school to education and education entrepreneurship. What was sort of that early career path like for you?
Oh, that's a hard question. I'm one of these people that have had three careers, which in a way I think is the wave of the future. I was just ahead of the curve. When I graduated from college, I went to Wall Street and worked in investment banking for a few years, and then moved on to Los Angeles to work in the entertainment business as an agent. Went to law school at night and graduated from there and moved to Washington, D.C., where I worked for a good 15 years in politics and government policy. I was communications director for John Lewis and former Senator Harry Reid. Both have passed away. And fell into education just by working with a young man in a program called Abused and Neglected Children, CASA. It's called CASA. And it was through his eyes that I saw in Washington, D.C., and through his life. He was a kid from a lower income family. And I saw up close hand public education, the failure of public education in Washington, D.C. And I'm one of these people, if no one else is solving the problem, I'm going to try to solve the problem. And so that led me into education over 15 years ago.
So what was next for you in terms of deciding to start a charter school? No easy feat, lots of hoops to jump through, paperwork to fill out, reporting, all of that. What was that process like for you, and what motivated you to launch Baltimore Collegiate?
Well, looking backwards, it was a whole period of asking for permission to create to create a great education for families that needed. Baltimore is a city in desperate need of reform in education. Its school system is one of the worst school systems in the country. When I was a charter school leader in Baltimore, I could not say that without having knives thrown at me. but the real reason, when people would ask me all the time, why are you starting a school? I'm starting a school because I'm seeing failure in every single respect for young Black and African American boys in this city. 20% of kids in Baltimore live in poverty. Our school was 98% African American, 70% living in poverty, and 60% were boys coming from single parent households. These numbers are now escape me, but a good 60% of our boys, maybe 70, were not reading at grade level in fourth grade. And we started our school in fourth grade. If you're not reading by fourth grade, you're not learning. You're just sitting in a chair, warming that chair. And our school system in Baltimore and around the country was okay with that outcome after decades and decades and decades of educating kids, continuous failure. And that more than anything else just made me, quite honestly, mad.
So what was the secret to your success at Baltimore Collegiate, where you had such a high poverty student body and lots of adversity that these students were confronting, and yet you outperformed the district schools significantly? Why was that, do you think?
Um, Number one is that we really cared about every boy who walked in the door. We really cared about every family. And we would start the school year every year by asking families. I would ask them, what are your hopes and dreams you have for your sons? And they would turn to each other, talk, and there would not be a dry tear in the room. And every single parent, regardless of their financial economic circumstance, wanted the very best for their children. But also many parents said, I want to make sure my son is still alive at 18. This is in Baltimore, a city where last time I checked, 20 young people under the age of 18 were killed on the streets of Baltimore. So safety was a critical part of our school. I think we operated the school with a sense that we want to love and understand and challenge every boy who walks in the door. We demanded from our teachers who were unionized, and there were some barriers to that, our teachers to go into a classroom every day and teach with knowledge, with expertise, with clear preparation. We wanted to focus on reading, so we doubled up on reading to make sure that every boy could, by the end of fourth grade, be reading at grade level, no matter where you came. We met our kids wherever they were and took them to wherever they needed to be. We focused on things like critical thinking, where we had seminars, critical seminars, and Socratic conversations with boys in fourth grade. I had a belief, and I still do, that our kids are quite capable of a lot more when we hold them to high expectations. And I think, Carrie, that's the fundamental thing, is that every child that walked in that door, we had high expectations for them, and we gave them support to exceed their performance every single day.
And do you think that was only possible, Jack, working in the charter sector? And of course, now you're in the microschool sector. Is it possible within the traditional district schools?
Yes and no. I think leadership matters, and there's constant change in traditional schools with leaders, and with school systems. There's a constant change in, well, let's try this curriculum and let's try this curriculum. A new superintendent comes in, a whole new curriculum is installed. Teachers are learning something new all over again. Teachers are concerned. As I look back on it, Carrie, I'm going to say this. When schools are focused on the needs of adults rather than the needs of children, the children will lose out on that. And that's what's happening in many school systems around the country. They're built around the needs of adults and not the needs of children.
So we're going to get to your experience now as a microschool entrepreneur, but I want to stay on charters just for a little bit longer, because
Sure.
Charters, when the charter sector emerged in the 1990s, charter schools were looked at as incubators of innovation. I mean, that was the term that was used, and these were going to be the tuition-free, taxpayer-funded but privately operated schools that would allow for experimentation and new ways to approach teaching and learning and provide parental choice. And it seems, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the charter sector, in most cases, has lost a lot of that kind of focus on innovation and experimentation, that they've become, in many cases, more rigid, regimented, standardized, and often reflective of traditional schools. Do you think that's fair, or do you think that they really have retained that spirit of innovation and experimentation that they began with?
Oh, I think that's an utterly fair statement. I don't think the authorizers who authorize charter schools really care very much about the innovation that their charter schools are authorizing. That, we can't get the authorizers to move off the dime about looking at state testing and the results of state testing. If you have a school built around, you're authorized to do well on the state testing. And if you have to build your curriculum, your academic program, your teaching culture around that test, it's kind of hard to move away into something that's innovative. and innovation is quashed when you even attempt it, when you attempt to say, listen, we should measure our kids by things other than growth, that we should look at the development of their character. We should look at their ability to solve problems. How do we do that? We should look at their ability to write well. How do we do that? And how do you want to measure that? Do you care about that? And I argued all the time, you're looking at the wrong things. What makes great schools is how students are learning and how they feel about learning and how they feel about their future of developing. What I find I can do quite easily in a micro school sector is develop a curriculum and academic program where we really are pointing kids and families toward what is a life of meaning and purpose for you and how we're going to get there.
So let's dig into that a little bit more, Jack. What motivated you to move from the charter sector to microschooling, which I think, and I'd be curious what you think, has that same spirit of innovation and experimentation that I think charters had decades ago. Hopefully, we can learn the lessons from charters and make sure that we push back against efforts to impose greater regulation on microschools or somehow constrain their growth and innovation. But there does seem to be that excitement. I wonder if that's what attracted you to launch a microschool in Phoenix, or what was that pathway like?
Carrie, I sent a note to a friend of mine 2 years ago who we were walking in Colorado, hiking in Colorado, and she's one of the early charter school pioneers. And she says, Jack, have you heard of micro schools? I said, what's a micro school? And she described it to me, a school in Colorado. And I said, I think I want to do that. And I think I want to do that. The more I heard how it was a permissionless environment to start a school, that I didn't have to spend time thinking about how I'm going to contort my vision for education into a system, that I could, in the other way, create the vision, execute on the vision, and then begin to expand some ideals that I think are very important in education, particularly around the education of boys. So one example, I could not make it happen in Baltimore. I think young boys need 2 recesses a day. I could not, because of the union, build in 2 recesses a day for young boys. I fought forever on that issue. And today, we actually have 3 recesses.
Good for you.
We begin the day in physical exercise, and we have a morning break at 10:30, and then we have athletic skill development in the afternoon. We actually stop core academic studying after lunch, before lunch.
So what happened from that hike to creating Trinity Arch Preparatory School? What happened over the course of those 2 years?
Lots of fortuitous things happened. One, I officially stepped away from Baltimore, we were trying to open a school in Philadelphia. That Philadelphia did not want us to open a school, even though they invited us to open a charter school in Philadelphia. The unions opposed us so much that we could not open a charter school in Philadelphia. And so I started to say, this world is becoming, the charter school world is becoming more and more problematic for me as an educator. And friends of mine throughout the country who were mostly in red states say, why don't you come to a place like Arizona? Because it's very progressive when we think about education. And I said, what do you mean? Well, Arizona is one of the only states in the country, Carrie, I'm sure you know this, that has had open enrollment for 20 years. So I became familiar with the school choice movement, which I never heard from ed reformers on the East Coast. And I met the West Coast and the red state people who were involved in, I'm just telling you the truth, who were involved in school choice. and I got to spend more time with them. I went to conferences, and I said, this is a whole new, I feel like I went to another planet to think about education. You're laughing.
I think it's great. I think it's so great. So then, yeah, so now you're realizing that Arizona might be a good place to create the school. And so then what happened?
When I learned more about empowerment savings accounts in Arizona and the universality of it, that it was accessible to everyone, I think that's a game changer in education. I think it's a game changer in one important way for me. One difference in the school that I'm creating for boys now is that we want true social economic diversity. I don't want to do a school that's segregated by race or class. I think that's the charter school movement moved into that space. They helped accelerate segregation of schools in many ways. That's controversial for me to say that. And I think that our children need to be going to diverse schools. So I think with empowerment savings accounts, that it opens the doors for families of all socioeconomic backgrounds to attend a private independent school of their choice.
And of course, Arizona leading the way, being the
Yes.
first state to create a universal ESA, Education Savings Account program, open to all K-12 students in the state of Arizona. Arizona, for years prior, had robust school choice policies, really leading
Yes.
the way there. And now we have an additional 8 states with universal school choice policies joining Arizona, including 7 states just this year that have passed universal school choice policies. So I think you're right. It is a game changer. And it shows, I think, also that not only are parents flocking to states where there are these robust school choice policies, where they do have more choice and variety of education options, but it's also attracting education entrepreneurs like you to say, oh, I'm
Yes.
going to, open my program in
Right.
one of these states. So most of you or all of your students attending tuition free, nearly tuition free. How is the cost structure?
We are charging a tuition, and we're charging a tuition over and above the average allocation for the ESAs. And that's by design, because I think that families should always have skin in the game. I may be a minority in that point of view, but I think it's important for families to have skin in the game. And I'm also trying to prove, Carrie, that can we deliver a high quality education at a lower cost than what the average school district does and what your average independent private school does. Your high quality independent private schools. So we have independent private schools in Phoenix that one school charges $30,000 a year. One of the most premier all boys school here, I think, is around 20,000. Our tuition is 15,000, and we're able to also raise scholarship funds for families who can't afford the gap between the ESA and our tuition point. But we're still.
It's still low, and it's about half. So it sounds like about half the tuition is paid for with the Empowerment Scholarship
Yes.
Fund, and then you're raising additional funds for scholarships for needs. But I think that's a really good point that you're making, of making sure that parents are realizing that they're paying for this service that they are choosing, and that there's some value to, like you said, having some skin in the game there. So I do think it's really interesting that you bring up this point about microschools being low cost. Certainly, all of the programs that I feature on my podcast are low cost. I'm not focused on traditional private schools. And I think what makes microschools and related models so innovative and so potentially disruptive to the overall education system is the fact that they are inherently low cost, that these aren't what we consider kind of conventional high-priced private schools. They are accessible to many lower and middle income families, and becoming even more accessible with the expansion of school choice policies. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Right. And can I add to that?
Please.
I think that low cost doesn't mean low value. And where I'm putting the majority of our costs into staff and talent. We're in a youth facility, a youth sports facility. my facility costs is like 10% of our annual budget, which is low. We're not, but we have access to playing fields, a basketball court, all those things, and we're in 1,000 square foot space for school every day. We're shoulder to shoulder with our tutor and myself, and it's a marvelous experience. It's like the one-room schoolhouse, right?
Yeah.
It's the new one-room schoolhouse, but we're delivering high value, I think, to families. I know that because that's what the families are saying. I just got a note from a parent that says, I love you so much. I'm telling all my friends about you. And my boys, my own boys actually want their friends to come to our school. So it's the personalized touch that is more costly than I would be in a traditional school. But I think we can make the budget work, that we stay under our peers.
Yeah, and just that, right, that low cost, high quality educational environment that's highly personalized, but that cuts out a lot of the bureaucracy that we find in traditional schools. You're operating very lean, most of these micro
Right.
schools,
Right.
so you're able to really focus on what matters, which is relationships between your teachers and students, and meeting students' needs where they're at.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I know you went through the KaiPod Catalyst program with Amar Kumar at KaiPod. I had two other KaiPod Catalyst founders on, Isis Span and Mercedes
Yes, great
Grant
friend.
earlier this fall. So, tell us a little bit about that experience going through this sort of micro school accelerator program. What was that like for you?
Really phenomenal. It exceeded my expectations. Having started a school
Mhm.
and tried to start another one, and doing it and doing school, the business of schools, there is a business to operating schools. And I think KaiPod was very good in what does that look like at a smaller scale. Uh, and the real value for me for the KaiPod Catalyst program was to be side by side with other people who were doing the same thing. All not like me from a charter school world, but teachers who were fed up and wanted to start schools, parents who were fed up and wanted to start their own schools. Really, very exciting and visionary entrepreneurs creating all types of schools, and that introduced me to that. And it was just nice. Just it's the role of the life of an entrepreneur can be very lonely, and I don't recommend trying to do this all by yourself. It's like you need people you can ask questions like, what's the best curriculum to do? What do you think about this marketing piece? I'm having a problem with this family. What's your experience? Looking for real estate is a really big piece that needs to be figured out, and I got some really great help and expertise on that.
So great. So tell us a little bit more about what Trinity Arch Preparatory School for Boys is like. What is your educational philosophy? What's your approach? I know you have those three recesses, but tell us
Yes.
really, what is the kind of culture curriculum that you're offering, and your overall intent?
Here we start with the premise that boys learn differently than many of our traditional schools are set up. Particularly when I first started the school, I thought we would serve boys from 10 to 14. And the first parents who walked in and met with me had two boys, one 10 and one 8. And they more or less said, you've got to take our 8-year-older too. And I wasn't thinking about starting school that young age, but you meet parents where they are. And this was a homeschooling family, and mom was just said, I don't want to do homeschooling anymore. Uh, and that became, it was very clear to me that there's a need to help homeschooling families with boys. Our mission is we're a Christian school based on Christian principles of hope, love, and service to others. And at the core of our mission is to develop strong relationships with boys and their families, and to meet boys where they are, no matter where they are, no matter what their struggles may have been in any other setting, we believe that we can work together to help your boy, to help him with his education and help him with his formation into a young man of an extraordinary character. Uh, we are we have 5 pillars that our academic program is built around. We want our boys to be able to think critically, reason analytically, communicate well in written and oral forms, creatively solve problems, and demonstrate self-leadership. And we're able to, by using technological platforms, to assess each student and develop an academic learning plan that fits the needs of that boy. And our goal is to accelerate his learning in the course of 1 year. So, and we have one-on-one tutors. It's myself and one other person, Tyler. We tutor, our tutoring groups are no larger than 3 boys per tutor. We're side-by-side learning with them, which is important, side-by-side learning. I will probably write a paper about that, how that's different from tutoring or sitting in front of a computer and learning. Side-by-side learning is really, I've always said, show me a school where adults are learning, and I'll show you a school where students are learning.
I love that.
And so side-by-side learning and physical engagement every single day. We happen to be in a basketball palace, and so our boys receive an hour of skills development in basketball every single day. Basketball being the kind of, it doesn't matter how good you are in basketball. In fact, I'm relearning basketball. And so that physical development is very important. We start our day in physical exercise outside. I love Arizona. You can be outside year round. That was a gift I never thought about, outside year round. And then we have a strong co-curricular program in the arts. We just started this week, studio art program. And we do mountaineering. There are mountains all around Phoenix. So my goal is we're going to know every single mountain in a year. And we use our curriculum is based on an inquiry-based curriculum. So we're asking questions why about everything we do, and begin with questions why. And so we have daily Socratic seminars as well.
Sounds like a magical place. And this is, of course, your pilot year. You just opened this fall, and you currently are truly micro. You have 5 students, but continuing
and
to
growing.
get and growing. I was just going to say, and continuing to get inquiries and parents interested. What are you hearing most from parents who are attracted to your model? Why are they seeking you out?
Homeschooling families frustrated. Homeschooling's hard. And it's hard, I think, with boys because boys really crave structure. They really want structure. And so in my experience, the boys we have who are homeschooled were restless. Like a boy who recently joined us, he's the only boy at home, and he has sisters, and he spent a day with us, and he begged his mother, I want to be with these other boys. I like them. So they're coming 2 days a week. We offer an opportunity for parents to come, for boys to come 2 or 3 days a week, or 4 days a week. So we offer that opportunity. My guess is that if you come 2 days a week, sooner or later you're going to be 4 days a week. But because I think I really want boys to come to school because they want to come to school and to have fun. And then we're talking to a new set of parents who I think are going to enroll, who their boys, their twins, have been in 3 different schools in the past 4 years for different kinds of challenges. And quite honestly, they're not the boys that do well in a classroom with 30 kids or 20 kids or even 15 kids. But they may thrive in our environment that's very small.
So what do you think is next? What are your predictions for the growth of your micro school? Do you have plans for it not to be micro at some point? I mean, do you envision, more than 100 kids? Do you plan to maybe scale by opening up additional small locations and kind of keep that micro feel? I guess what are your future projections and goals?
I'm anxious to see our community of families matter very much, and I'm seeing this is a part of the vision I've always had, even in Baltimore, is that the families are all in to the education of their sons, and I'm seeing this on a very small scale. Our families know each other; they spend time outside of school. Their children do with each other, so there's a real strong community developing that just warms my heart. Um, I have a vision today that the demand will grow. And if it's anything like Baltimore, it's going to be Baltimore. Ultimately, we had 500 people on the waiting list to come to our school. We had to turn people away. So my vision is, with God's help, that we won't have to turn people away, that we'll just develop more micro schools. Phoenix is large, Arizona is large, and other sectors of the city, but they will always be on a small scale. I hope no more than 20 people in a hub. And we have a hub and spoke kind of thing, and then we would be one school and maybe come together, all 100 kids or so, once a week, but they would be known as Trinity Arch Prep kids. That's my vision. Because I think there's just such a demand. And also, we're striving to have that socioeconomic diversity. So I never want one school to be just exclusively low-income kids or kids from low-income households. So we're going to work really hard to have a third, and a third high income, a third middle income, and a third low income.
Mm. Yeah, I think that that's really interesting that you want to retain that small size, that seems to be
The
the
magic
special
sauce.
ingredient.
Yeah.
Yeah. But have multiple of them. And like you said, have the micro schools get together and all be under kind of one larger umbrella program and share resources here and there, but keep that small learning space and that focus on
Right.
personalization.
Right. Right.
So Jeff,
And the real
yeah,
challenge, I want to say, the real challenge just for your listeners
yeah.
is I have an amazing first tutor, a young man named Tyler, who's just amazing. Just amazing. And we're not thinking about traditional teachers standing from a chalkboard
Mm.
talking all day long. That does not happen. If you came to our school, you would say, "What's going on here?" And there are like 5 different boys doing 5 different things at the same time.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's unique. And so we're looking for really special people who can fill that role for master tutor, which is both coach, counselor, academic coach, and side-by-side learner.
So, this is what I think makes the microschool movement broadly and encompassing all of these different diverse models so innovative and disruptive. It's again that low cost, high quality piece, but also this focus on individualized learning and really uprooting the traditional way of approaching teaching and learning. Do you think that this new model and this sort of decentralized education ecosystem will change American education more broadly, could potentially change traditional schools in some way? And if so, how?
I love your question. I absolutely feel that as any kid who's walking into a traditional school and sitting in a chair for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, I hope they are screaming out to their educators, "We can't do this anymore. We don't want to do this anymore. I'm not learning anything by preparing for this quiz and that quiz and this quiz and that test, and waiting for results and doing it." By the way, we're a no homework school. And fighting with the teacher whether the homework is done or read or not. Um, I think children and families will demand real change in education. My biggest worry is how are large systems going to change? It takes. I recently heard it takes a big ocean liner boat in the ocean. It takes them 8 miles of turning inch by inch to completely turn around. And I think about that in education, in our traditional systems, they're like those ocean liners. And if they're not even moving an inch today to change, that change will come so slowly that parents will demand to be at a place like ours. And I hope that we will have some lessons that we can share with people. I hope maybe down the road we can collaborate with school districts, particularly around boys' education and trying this model out. I'm trying to figure out still what the model is and how we execute on it. And that's why this is a pilot year. But I have hope for the future that maybe the revolution will come from families themselves rather than the administrators with their six-figure salaries. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, I have the same hope that it is everyday education entrepreneurs like you who are building these incredible new models that parents want, where children are flourishing, that's what ultimately will change American education, is changing American education from the bottom up. So it's just exciting to see, and so grateful that you're a part of that. Jack, what is the best way for my listeners and viewers to follow your progress, connect with you, learn more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. We're on Twitter at Trinity Arch Prep. We're on Facebook at Trinity Arch Prep. We're not on LinkedIn just yet, I don't think. We're definitely on Facebook, and we have a website, trinityarchprep.org or .com. I'm personally on LinkedIn. You can always reach me, Jack Johnson Pennell. I'm the only one on LinkedIn. Jack Johnson, I'm named after the famous fighter. So Jack Johnson Pennell, Pannell. Reach me on LinkedIn. I think that's the best way. I don't want to.
So great.
Is that fine?
That's perfect. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm certainly looking forward to following your progress and connecting more with you. Hopefully we can do a sequel sooner than later and hear how things are
absolutely.
going.
And
But
and Carrie, can I
yeah.
thank you for
Oh,
your
please.
witness and your work and just asking the hard questions and keeping this. I'm finding here in Arizona that many parents have no idea that they have access to education dollars to educate their sons and daughters. And even when I tell them they have it, I tell them to go to the website, go to our website, or go to the Arizona State Department of Education. They still think of it's like there's something wrong with this. But I can tell you, and this is shout out to the state of Arizona, in so far, our dealings with the state have been outstanding. I mean, we have been paid on time. As soon as we submit an invoice, within 5 days, the funds are in our account to carry out our mission. So that's another unique thing I want to say about Arizona is that we may be in the wild, wild west, but there's a lot of good stuff happening out here. And I'm really grateful for this.
So much gratitude. And I do think that as more parents realize that they have access now in many states to universal choice programs, they'll tell their friends, and that will also contribute to rising demand for innovative learning models like yours. So, Jack Johnson Pennell, thank you so much for being on the Liberated podcast.
Thanks so much.